seen them, Mr. Taylor?
I have.
All right, you can rely on the list as being what's being shown to the witness. So, I mean, if you want to see it, you can, but you ought to know what's being shown to them. I've done do we have a defense witness or evidence list?
We're working on that now, Judge.
Okay, you can give me that, that'd be helpful.
Thank you.
I've done some a draft of jury instructions. Nothing out of the ordinary, I don't believe. You'll see I highlighted the heat of passion defense. From what I've heard so far, it probably is not applicable, but it's easier for me to take something out later than to add it in. So that's an affirmative defense. Anybody thought of anything else unique you're going to be seeking?
No, sir.
No, sir.
I didn't see a felony murder theory. I didn't hear a felony murder theory being pursued. Are you anticipating a felony murder theory, Ms. Captain? What?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. You have your witness in the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
All right. Once you get your witness, and let's have a jury please. Everybody be seated, please. Good morning, folks. Thanks for being back here this morning. Hope everybody's doing all right this morning. Ms. Kappelman, you may call your next witness.
The state calls Joshua Stubbs.
All right, if you'd face the clerk and be sworn, please, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right.
What is your name, sir?
Joshua Stubbs,
Could you spell Stubbs, please?
Stubbs.
How are you employed?
I'm a paramedic with Leon County EMS for 5.5 years.
All right. And what type of training and experience do you have to perform that job?
Paramedic school required you to be a licensed EMT. Prior to that, it's probably 2 years worth of schooling, and you have to pass a state board paramedic test.
Okay. And did you respond to 8374 Inverness Drive on February 22nd, 2014?
Yes.
What did you respond in reference to?
We responded for a possible drowning, cardiac arrest.
And what did you observe upon your arrival at that address?
When we got there, TFD, the fire department here in town, was already on scene. They had started CPR prior to an IO.
Okay. And what was the purpose of the medicines that were administered through the IO?
They are for ACLS guidelines, give you algorithms for what to administer during a cardiac arrest. If you find someone in asystole, there's protocols for epinephrine. Also sodium bicarb we give for respiratory acidosis when you're not breathing for a certain amount of time. Also we gave dextrose 50% for her blood sugar being low.
And you mentioned ACLS guidelines. What does that
Advanced
stand for?
cardiac life support.
Okay, so you're trained in those protocols.
Correct. We're trained under, we have a medical director that establishes protocols, and he has to go by ACLS guidelines for cardiac arrest.
All right, and were all those guidelines, protocols, and training complied with in this case?
Correct.
Okay. And did you achieve any results as a result of your efforts?
All of our attempts at resuscitation were successful. However, she remained in asystole and remained unresponsive throughout the transport.
Okay, so successful meaning you were able to perform?
We were able to perform, but they did not revive her.
Okay. So did you observe any signs of life at all
No,
from
ma'am.
her? Okay. Could you tell the jury about your efforts? Did you actually put in the tube into her mouth?
Correct. It's
Goes
an
down into-
endotracheal tube. It goes straight into your trachea, and that's how we protect your airway and administer the ventilations.
And did you have any difficulty inserting the tube?
No.
And was there any difficulty with delivering oxygen to her lungs through that tube?
There was no difficulty giving the oxygen. However, when we administered the ventilations, we did note frothy sputum coming out, which appeared to be pool water.
So a substance consistent with pool water was coming out of her into the tube.
Right.
Could you explain any efforts that were made to warm the body?
I do remember we gave warmed fluids through the IO. However, I do not recall anything else.
And she was transported to the hospital?
Correct.
And during that transport, did you note fluid constantly coming from the tube?
Occasionally, yes.
In your report, did you say constantly coming from the tube?
Yes, I did.
Did you note any other injuries to her other than the evidence consistent with a drowning?
In my report, I wrote no obvious signs of trauma. Just from what I could tell, I couldn't see anything.
Okay, and I'm going to show you what I've marked as state's exhibits 86, I'm sorry, 26 and 27. Do you recognize those exhibits?
Yes.
Are those fair and accurate portrayals of how this patient appeared to you when you turned her over to the hospital?
Yes.
And so the frothy substance in the tube pictured in the state's exhibit 27 would be consistent with the type of substance coming out that you observed throughout the transport?
Correct.
Can I publish?
Gonna
I'm sorry,
offer them.
introduce and publish 26 and 27.
26 and 27 will be admitted, you may publish.
And I also noticed in State's Exhibit 27, a little bit of clear fluid running out of her nose. Was that something that was ongoing throughout your treatment of her?
I don't remember.
Yeah, well, we do. And once she's turned over to the staff at the emergency room, would that conclude your involvement?
Correct. ma'am.
In conjunction with the work you were doing that morning, you indicated by the time you got there, the woman had already been pulled from the pool?
Correct.
Okay. Did you happen to notice whether or not she was loose and limber or stiff with what we know as rigor?
I don't recall.
Do you recall taking a deposition or giving a deposition in this case back in April of 2015 when you were asked if there was any indication of rigor mortis with the victim and your response? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
May I approach, Judge?
Do you mind?
Page 13.
Just read it to yourself, Mr. Stubbs.
Showing you what's been marked well, the transcript, page 13. Start reading from lines 17 to 25 yourself, and then see if that refreshes your recollection. Does that refresh your recollection of what you recall stating in the deposition and observing when you were there in 2014?
It says on line 24, I don't remember her being rigor, comma, no.
Right, you didn't recall her being in rigor, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Incidentally, when you do a recovery from water like this, do you bag the hands?
I'm sorry?
Bag the hands, do you put the hands in bags, secure them?
No.
Did you, in this case, or did you notice whether or not her hands had been bagged?
I'm not sure what bagged means.
Bags over the hands and secured to protect the hands?
No.
Okay. Did you happen to notice whether or not there was any features concerning either the hands or toes, like wrinkling or pruning?
I don't recall. That's not something that I would have.
Are you familiar with what the term wrinkling or pruning?
Correct.
And what is that? What are those terms?
You're referring to when you're in water for a long time, your fingers and toes start becoming wrinkled.
Correct. Do you have any particular training or experience as to how long you have to be in water before wrinkling takes effect?
No, I do not.
Okay. And were you aware that day as to the water temperature in the pool?
In my report, I wrote TFD personnel states that the pool water was very cold. However, I did not personally touch the pool water, so I'm not sure.
And you were not in the water at any time, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all we got.
Redirect.
Is it part of your training to look for pruning and make a determination about whether to attempt life-saving efforts based on whether or not the patient is pruned?
No, ma'am.
Nothing further.
Any juror have a question of this witness? All right, if not, you may step down. Do we need to keep him further?
No, sir.
No, sir.
You're excused. Thank you for being here. Call your next witness.
Dr. Michael Glaze.
You'll need to retrieve it. Face the clerk and be sworn, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Have a seat. Slide up the microphone, please.
Sir, please introduce yourself and spell your name.
I'm Dr. Michael Glaze, Michaelglaze.
How are you employed?